Hey everyone, welcome to Coffee Code and Chat, where we talk about everything programming. And today I'm excited because I have an amazing guest on. He was here a couple of streams ago where he taught us really important skill on how to plan your project. And today we're going to take that plan and continue with it. And I'm really excited because we're going to get an introduction to Vue JS. If you're not sure who I am, I don't know either, but I run this channel called Coding After 30, and I stream normally Fridays and Saturdays. Friday nights I do some coding stuff, and Saturday mornings we'll do stuff where I bring on guests or we cover cool things like today, getting started with Vue. So if you haven't subscribed, that's okay. You don't have to, but if you like to, you can, and smash the like button if you want. And so I'm gonna bring George on now. And hey, George, what's up? How's it going today?
Hello. Uh, I think better since last week, but
Yeah, it's glad that you're feeling better.
yeah, I'm really sorry we were not able to do this last week.
Oh, no worries, no
But
worries.
hey, it's the flu season, so all good.
Yeah. No, I'm just glad you're feeling better. Like being sick just sucks. Doesn't matter like when, where it happens. It's just terrible, and it's no big deal. But glad to have you back. So last stream you had us go through and think about our project from the design standpoint in terms of like how to plan it, how to organize it, and all this other great stuff. And today we want to continue that, and we're going to do an intro with Vue JS. And so let me ask you a question first, right out of the right from the gate. Like, why did you choose Vue JS? And especially, it's like like React is so popular. Everybody wants to do React. Like I'm like one of those people, and I think Vue.js is wonderful, but I want to hear from you. Like, what was your thinking behind it? Why did you choose it?
um, it's a question of eventually personal preference. I tried
Mm,
multiple times going to React a couple of years ago. After a while, it's didn't quite struck a tune with me. Then I jumped to Angular. It was a lot better, and then I decided to try Vue as well, and that was kind of hitting the mark for me. Um, I think the most important aspect is the fact that it's HTML first.
mm,
Um, Normally, the way that the web has developed, if we all remember, it started with HTML and then introduced some CSS, and then later on, some JavaScript. Actually, JavaScript came before the CSS, to be honest. But when those people started to build the World Wide Web, this is the way it worked. As far as I'm concerned, and I know a lot of people might get upset on this, libraries like React mostly kind of ruined a bit the experience. Too much taking everything and mingling it together when we have budgets of billions to keep things separate.
yeah,
So that's another thing, and then created, of course, an amount of issues that you can think of. So anyway, eventually, I also came, of course, from a strong design background. So for me, going for Vue, it was a personal choice and no brainer for me at least. But
yeah,
I'm happy to see that on the JavaScript state for 2022, I can see there is an increase of libraries and frameworks that actually look like Vue. For example, Svelte, now it's almost the top choice,
wow,
and Vue is
nice.
still about there, which is pretty nice and funny as it is, because you did say about React. The other one that was called Kwik, and there was another one with S. I forgot the name. And somebody was just asking the other day on LinkedIn, "Hey, do you guys think we should introduce HTML first on this?" And everybody's like, "Yes, do it." So yeah, that's the long short story.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I think you're right that from the standpoint, it's like it is a personal preference, and you should pick the thing that you feel more comfortable, that makes sense to you. Like, which is weird. A lot of people like, why do you React? And for me, it's like literally two reasons. In my area, there's like more job opportunities, and the second reason is literally I love JSX. Like, I like the concept of it, and to me, it makes sense. And so when I go to like other language where you have to use like some sort of templating, like it's not that like I don't like it. It's just not something that I personally prefer. But it, you know, and for me, like it's opposite with some people. They're like, oh, I hate JSX. I just want to use my templating, and you know, it just makes more sense to me. And having this, you know, not everything be in one place. I think it makes sense. And to me, it I've been doing JSX for such a long time that it's just like second nature to me. So go back and doing like a templating thing, like that reminds me of like back all like in the day when I used to do a little bit of PHP, and it's a little bit like alien to me. So I'm excited to have you like walk us through your examples, and I'll probably will have some questions. So awesome. So
Of
whenever you're
course.
ready, you could get started.
Of course, as a final.
Somebody says, Artur says, who is this gentleman? He has a lovely accent. Yeah, this is George, one of my friends. He did a stream with us not too long ago where he introduced us on how to plan our project. By the way, here's the thing. Like after watching that stream, I learned very important lesson that planning should always be done. And so here's the consequence of that. I had to go back and refactor my app that I was working at. And I basically had to start from the beginning. But now what I do is I have that mirror board similar to like what you demonstrate and show to us to kind of guide me. And what I realized, without planning, you might make mistakes that you don't even know is a mistake because you didn't foresee something. And then like, you know, 2 weeks, 2 months into it, you're like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have done that. And then refactors are expensive, like in time and money. Like, you know, if it's a personal project,
I
it's like
agree.
it costs time. So that if
I,
you missed
I
that
agree.
stream, check it out. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a
Uh,
big
yeah,
lesson.
that's the good thing. So as a reminder for everybody, you can also share the link for the first part when we started to actually do the preparation of the project. Just as a small short introduction to what just Paul said, or you know, let's say summarize things. If you don't plan first, then it's going to be very expensive to change things later, or you can introduce some mistakes. The far more important aspect is that it doesn't have to be a huge project. It can also be a very small project. It can also be a task. The planning phase of anything is going to save you point. Instead of you focusing on thinking of how you code, you should first think what you need to achieve. Plan it accordingly. And by planning means, hey, what do I need to do? What technologies do I need to use? How I might get this done? And put it on paper. And once you have this figured out, you know, with multiple, you know, concurrencies there, or maybe, you know, backup plans, then you can say, okay, now I know what I'm doing. I'm going to code it. So that's what we did in the first part. Now behind the scenes a bit, I spent just, you know, half a day putting some template together, because there's no point in us spending here you know, an hour just to build a template and no programming whatsoever. So I've shared the link in the guest chat, Paul. You can feel free
Yep.
and copy that and paste it to everybody if you want to have
Yep.
a base code line so you can use it. As far as I'm concerned, you can freely use that repo from there. It's also having an MIT license. I cannot guarantee anything if anybody might bother you commercially, but as a general rule, I use photos from Unsplash. They have a very, you know, libertarian license kind of style, so it's free for everything, except of course reselling that image. But you can use it commercially, you know, and privately. So all good. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah. Before you go, like this software I have using, I have for the life of me don't know where the guest channel. Can you send me that on Discord if you don't mind, and then I'll paste it.
Oh, of
Sorry,
course. Just
it's
a
just
moment.
this is one thing that I could never figure out on this stupid thing is where's the guest chat? I see like YouTube chat. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. I got it. Let me paste it.
It's comments and then guest chat. There are two sections there
Yeah, and
on
for
the
me,
website. But
it's
yeah,
a totally different screen, and sometimes it shows up and sometimes it doesn't. So, like, I wish I had your
yeah,
screen because
that's
it's way more appropriate. So, yeah, and so you could start sharing your screen. I threw that in the chat, and if anybody has
yeah.
questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Let us know.
Let me share the screen. Problem. Just move away.
Yep, and
Let me
then
know if
we
you see
add
it.
you to this. Boom, and I would maybe do a little bit more zoom on the code part. just a little bit. I know like a lot of times people on the YouTubes are like, hey,
Yeah, it's no problem. I will do some zooming here.
yeah, there we go. Nice. Awesome.
So
When we're ready, I'm
I
excited.
can I can safely assume you can see my screen, maybe.
Yes, your screen is on, but let us know on the YouTube if it's not, but I believe it's on. It looks good. So
Okay, cool. So
nice.
as I've said, you have the repository. You can download it and install it. You have the everything in there. It's about as simple as you can get. npm install and so forth. But I'm not gonna bother too much about this part. What I did is just the main implementation of the design. It looks close enough to what we built last time. It's just a bit better. And I can navigate a bit between some pages, and then I can add into cart at least fictively just something. So I would see that the function works. The nice part is that right now it's stored at the local storage because I'm using some libraries behind, but I'll get to that as well. So I need to clear this out if I want to see an empty cart altogether. So anyway, getting back to my code, I have a client and then I have a server. The server, of course, runs Strapi behind, and then the client runs the Vue.js. As you can see here, it's on the local host. Just let me see if I can zoom in a bit more. That's pretty much it. Okay, so for the first part of the exercise, we need to have some data. And what I'm interested in is to create dynamic data for this menu here, right? So the logical aspect would be for me to go to the UI admin for the Strapi. I'm not sure how you guys call this part,
Yeah.
the
So
dashboard.
just
Yeah,
quickly to add to that. So you set up a basic project where you started with Vue.js, and maybe before diving
yeah,
deeper, can you just go through the folder structure of the Vue.js project? And then also
sure.
for your backend, instead of having to build the whole API yourself, you decided to go with Strapi CMS just to kind of add some context. If someone was just wondering how are we going to get data, what is Strapi? Strapi is a headless CMS that allows you to set up a backend API with a beautiful admin literally in 5 minutes. Yeah, so let's walk through the code first. Like whenever you, like when you start Vue, what is the command that you use to like create a project? Is it like
Well,
similar,
usually
like if
it's
you would go like create React app, they have their own version of that?
it's a bit different than I can show you in a moment because I don't know from the top of my head.
Yeah, no problem.
Usually it's something with npx something create project.
Nice.
So if you do a get start, you have here of quick start. I'm sorry. So see you need to do an npm init view latest, and then once you do that, it will take you through a setup, and then you will choose whatever you want to use. Do you want TypeScript? Yes or no. Do you want JSX support? Yes or no, depending on what you use.
Yeah,
For the current project, I only use the router, which is this one. I use Pinia. I don't use unit tests, Cypress, whatever, and I also use ESLint and Python just to format code and make sure we don't
nice.
have, linting errors. And
Yeah,
then you
so
just, enter your project and then npm install and npm run that, and that's pretty much it.
yeah, perfect. And so basically, documentation is your friend, but based on what I'm looking, it seems like very straightforward way to get started. So let's take a look. So yeah, and Strapi is like super easy. You run npx create Strapi app at latest, give it a name, boom, it does the thing for you, and then you get beautiful admin that's literally ready to go. And then we could, if you have questions around Strapi when George is showing what he's doing, please let us know in the chat. And now let's just do like a brief folder structure overview of Vue and like what folders are created and kind of describe like just the basic functionality of the folders, because I know you have your templating, like, and I'm really not familiar with Vue, and so I'm curious, like, how do
Of
you
course.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but how do you push data into your template and how you consume it from your template?
Of course, of course. So uh, when you install this, they usually pre-populate most of the stuff in here. And by most of the stuff means the folder structure, some of the configurations. You will have something like vidconfig.js. Behind the scenes, for a lot of you that are familiar with Webpack, imagine that Vid it's something like Webpack. I'm sorry, but far more advanced, a lot faster, and nicer to use. And as far as I can say, right now, it's the number one tool for almost everybody to use. So you do some configurations. For example, inside my vid config, I had to call something like define config and load environments, so I can access environment files. For example, like this one, where I have to pass in the what kind of environment is, the type of the environment, what is the base URL, the API URL, and then I need also this one, the vid API URL, because sometimes Vite requires this part as well to work with it. And then you do, the normal kind of settings like CSS preprocessor. If I want to have, for example, access to variables globally without constantly loading this file everywhere, because normally if you want to load something, you need to do an import. So I'm going to do the import globally here, the vid config, and when the project runs, initially it does the build, then imports globally the variables, and then I have access to all the variables without actually importing every single file stuff. So that's one of the things. Of course, you'd have the normal package JSON. For example, in here, I'm just using a few libraries, such as Vue use components. This is a nice library from Vue, which kind of simplifies things for you by a lot. For example, if I am to do Vue use JS, this is the library I'm using. It's maintained by the core team. It has a lot of functionality. Imagine this like Lodash, but on steroids. For example, if you want to use, for example, get the mouse position, you have to do a lot of JavaScript. Well, they have a special function here which target that, and then you just implement it like a normal function, passing the parameters and so forth. Or for example, you know how difficult it is to see when something goes outside of the window area. Then they have functions for that as well. And they also have functions like, for example, session storage. Session storage in general is very difficult to implement, but with this library, you can actually do it. And I'm going to show this within this project, because I already implemented and I'm using it on almost every single project. That's how I persist this here. So for example, if I add to cart and then I hard refresh, you'll see that the state is still here. Why? Because
Yep.
it's coming from the local storage.
Nice.
That's what the library does, but it does it deceptively simple. And just for the fun of it, I'm just going to show you and then I'm going to explain. This is all you need to do.
Wow.
Really, you just say use storage. This is the name, and this is where it's going to get stored.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, you just take care of everything, and you don't have to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it does some magic. Nice.
So that's one of the things that I'm using. Of course, there will be other things that I'm using in the package JSON, like Axios. Of course, everybody knows what is this. Bootstrap library, Bootstrap 5, of course, and Bootstrap icons. For the store, I'm using Pinia, and then for the CSS, I'm using SAS as a precursor. Processor for CSS. So.
Yep.
That's the better part. Of course, I'm adding something like prettier RC. What kind of settings do I want to have my
Yep.
Visual Studio? Training type support, yes, link and so forth. But if I am to look at the SRC, you see I have this part. It's the public, which everything that I put there is literally public. It's not protected whatsoever, and you can call it exactly as it is in here. It's like a normal public folder, but then the SRC is the root folder of the application. And then in here, you'd have something that is called assets. It's where you place most of your things like images, CSS, If you want, you can even place some JavaScript files if you want. But in general, when I think of assets, I think of something that, hey, it's style and images. That's this for me. And then usually JavaScript, I just put it somewhere else.
Nice.
This is where I have the CSS. Of course, I have a main file, CSS, and with the recommended implementation from Bootstrap, of course. And then, those variables which I've said I'm using across the
Your theme, basically.
yeah, across my team, so I can access this very good. I mean, very easy. I'm sorry. Then the other folder is components. It has to be called components. So otherwise, if you change it, you will not recognize it any longer. This is where you're going to have your components. So basically, this part is a component. This part is a component. This part is a component, right? And usually a component is nothing else than a file, a single file template, because that's what it's called in Vue. For most of you there, especially people coming from React or from Angular, you end up having multiple files. So you have a file for your JavaScript, you have a file for your HTML, you have a file for CSS. But in Vue.js, this is everything in just one single file. That's why it's called a single file component. You have the JavaScript at the top, you have the HTML template in the middle, and then you have the CSS or the style directly at the level of the component.
So every
yeah,
Vue component basically have to follow the structure where you have the script section for your JavaScript, I'm assuming, and then you have your template, which is where you put your HTML, and then styles.
Yep.
So like that's your CSS. Cool, nice. All right, thanks.
Yeah, that's I mean, Vue thought this through very well, and they realized, hey, this is a pattern everybody uses in general. Everybody wants to have closed components, and everybody's putting everything in a component. So then let's do it like that. So that's why you have a single file view component.
And just quick question, like, so the CSS that you put inside here, it will be like, because I see scoped in there, will be just scoped for this particular
It can
like
be
component.
scoped, or
Yep.
I can do it in unscope if I want to use a component which import another component and do some kind of cascading style.
Yep.
You can do it like that as well, but in general, as a default, I go with scoped, and then if
Nice.
I don't like things and I want to actually nest things, multiple components, then I can remove scope. But in generally, I prefer simplicity. I like to have multiple components separate, in logic and functionality, and then anything else comes from
The
assets. For example,
base.
if from the
Yep.
base, and
Base
then in the
CSS.
assets, so I can leverage these things, which is quite interesting. Right. So that's with the components. Of course, you have a router component. Um, it's exactly where you define your routes. How do you want to import your routes? And now this is something specific to Vue. In React may look a bit different. Of course, in Angular may look different, but at the end of the day, it's just a router. It's where your application deals with the request within your application and then loads the appropriate components or views. That's all there is to it.
I have a quick question. I
Yeah.
know, like, this is where you are defining your routes using create router, and then what do you use router? How do you, like, because I'm not familiar with Vue, but like in React router, you have something where you define like the main like route, which is like a parent, and then inside there you pass your routes, so then inside there you could pass your components. So how is this used? Like, where's the router variable called?
So this is the variable here. This is the name
Okay.
that needs to be passed. However, I did this little smart thing because I'm only passing views in here, and
Right.
then the
Okay.
views
I see
always
it.
load components for me. That's my logic. And then I know that every single time I need to do an import from views and then the name of the view. And then I said, okay, so here is my component, and load my component, which is the function, and then I just pass in the name.
Yeah, the function. Yeah, and the function basically imports it to that URL that
Exactly.
you have
So
filed. Yep.
initially you do like this,
Yep.
but
But
because I don't want to,
rewrite
triple
it.
time over do this, so I'm just gonna do it like this. Hey, this is the
Perfect.
constant, and then that's how you do it. But I just left it there for
Yep.
for people to see it. Hey, you can also do it like this if you want, but
Yep.
you
Yeah.
have
I
to
like I
manually
like
do the
the
input all
your
the time.
function idea. Less typing makes it better.
Yeah, initially I was kind of doing like this. And then in one of the projects, I saw a colleague doing something like that. Say, hey, this is nice. I can steal it. So I did. Eventually, everybody's borrowing code from everybody. I was kind of doing something strange with this part. Say, hey, I like this. It's much more nicer. So uh, for people who just got into development, don't think that once you know development, you'll invent everything. A lot of the good practices are already out there. You just need to
Yep.
look for them and just borrow them. Everybody does it, so there's no shame on that. I mean, actually, this is the way and probably the best way to move very fast. Look at other people and how they code. So that's with the router. Of course, there is a dedicated thing that's Vue router. For everybody who wants to see this, go to router.vue.org, which is this one, and then you have everything that you need here. They explain everything, how you pass in the relative, dynamic data and so forth. So there you go.
Nice.
um, then we have stores. Just oops. In here we have the store. For those of you coming from React, I think I'm not even sure any longer what you're using in React to store things is RxJS or something like that. Well,
In terms of like React, like sometimes I don't use the library. I just use local storage. For like if you want to store like cart data and stuff like
all
that.
right,
So and then you
all
just
right.
write your own implementation hook. But there are libraries to make it easier for sure.
Okay. Vue had always had a first-hand implementation on this, and they always had a library. Initially, it was called Vuex. Then the same people who build UX build Pinia, which is the next generation, which is a lot simpler and a lot nicer to use. Basically, the only thing you need to do is to create the state. You have a getter, and then you have an action. So you'll notice that we don't have a mutation. Why? Because the action does the mutation.
Oh,
That was the
nice.
whole point. So you need to update something. So why do we need also a mutation? So then
Right.
they remove that and they just put the action. So if I want to update something, I just call the action, which call the state, and then sends back data for the getter. That's the best practice. So it's not something extremely complicated or complex. It's just that's how we use it. And if I am to look here, for example, I can see I have the not the components, not the timeline. Sorry. Let me refresh this a bit. So there is this drop down, and I have Pinia. Oh, by the way, I'm using what am I using? I'm using the Vue.js developer extension from Chrome,
Nice.
but I'm actually using Brave. So I can see in the cart that I have nothing, but as soon as I add things,
Nice.
I can see them here as well. Of course, I can also edit them. Item X, and it's still there, or I can delete. And I can see it's updating
Nice. That's
in
kind
real
of
time
cool.
as well.
Yeah. You have access to
And
your
if I go
state.
through the application here and I delete it directly, the nice part is updating here at the same time in the application level as well,
Nice.
because I have that Vue core thing installed, views. So that's with the store as well. Then I have things like utilities. Usually in utilities, I put the API calls, some API header configuration, and the API query. So if I'm to take in like this, because we're going to use Axios, I didn't want to waste a lot of time, and I usually just copy paste from one project to the other if there is a good pattern that I want to use. And I'm
Yep.
using this in most of my projects. So I'm just, importing some authentication if I need to have some authentication, things like that. Get the token if I want to store the authentication and so forth. So, I can do this kind of things. But for this particular project, you're gonna keep it this simple.
Yeah. I just
We will
want
not do
people get like the
authentication and
basic
so forth.
like idea. The one like I guess like what's the difference between the views folder and the components folder? And then can you talk about the main.js file and then
Sure, sure.
app view file, just to kind of people get their bearings?
So the project always starts with the main Vue.js as the entry point. This is where you just declare what is the initial baseline, and that would be Vue, which does a create app. Then you also initialize the pinia, which is your store, and then you just need to import the app.vue, which is this one, and then the app.vue starts to bootstrap your entire application here. It gets the components, main component, the router view, and so forth. And then here, of course, you get the rest of the stuff like API. The router. You import if you have the main CSS. That's why it's in the assets now. And then at the final part, you just instantiate the application and mount it. It's pretty much the same stuff, I think, for React and Angular, where you bootstrap the application, you have to mount it. Of course, it differs from one application to the other, but to be honest, I still think Vue probably has the easiest setup.
Yeah. And so
Um,
there was a question, is Vue using JSX? Because JSX looks like HTML, so it's very easy to confuse. But no, Vue just using straight up HTML, and what you do is you create views by building templates right with HTML. And since he asked that question, how would you pass data to your templates?
the data templates, if it's dynamic template, then you have to go into the router and create a dynamic part. For example,
Yep.
if you're here, you need to add the dynamic part. So if you know that needs to actually, let me show you this because it's a lot better. So I'm just going to say dynamic route with parameters. See, you have dynamic routing. So in the dynamic routing, you need to create the routes with something like this. Hey, it's the path slash, and then it's colon and the article name, and that would be your ID or something that you want to pass to the router, and then the router will compose that with the view that you give it, plus the ID or whatever you pass, maybe a slug or something, and then it generates a dynamic view. That's what I said. Because we're quite short on time, my
Yep.
advice is to go deep with the Vue router. The nice part with the Vue, and I do stretch this out, if you go to Vue.js, here's the amazing part of this. You have something that is called ecosystem. In the ecosystem, you have absolutely everything you need. You have the router, you have the store management, the tooling guide, and
Nice.
including everything else like Discord, Vue School, mastering, and so forth, teaming, and so forth. Really, it's all there. That's one of the things that I actually like. And it's not only that, but all of them are maintained by the core team, which
Nice.
is a huge thing. Right. Getting back to this part. So
Somebody already
once
likes
the
likes likes Vue. Mateus says less messy for me. Separates HTML from CSS and JS from HTML. Looks much more cleaner. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, find a thing that you find makes it more sense to you in your mind that you love to use, and use that to build your projects. If it's Vue.js, it's Vue.js. The one caveat I would say is that if you're looking to get a job, like, do some market research. And now that you could work online and remotely, it's not as big of a deal. But there's some places, for instance, like Artur was telling me, they're like, because I always talk about React, but he's like, there's a lot of PHP jobs where I live. You know what I mean? And so do take that into
yeah,
account.
there is.
But at the same time, like, definitely pick something that you like and enjoy working with, that will make you productive doing the things that you want to do. But see, people already like you. God damn you, George.
Yeah, that is true. That's what I always said as well. I think it's best if you want a job to see what the market requires. Um, but if you want to build something for yourself, in general, pick the tools that you enjoy most. As it happens, I got lucky. I also did this as a contractor for different companies, only with Vue. But I also like Vue for my personal projects, so I'm just sticking to this for the moment. Into the near future, I'm going to invest time into Svelte because I think it's going to replace pretty soon in the next couple of years, probably all of them. But only time will tell. So I said, so the app starts to ask for views and components, and then the router will solve those. So you always start with the view. For example, in our case, the view, it's the home page, right?
Yep.
For example, if I open the router, oops, router. So if I'm gonna put the router here, I'm just, oops, put the router here. I can see that for home, I'm loading the home view part. So I can see this one.
Yep.
And then this loads some of the components like the photo header and the restaurant menu, which the
Yep.
photo header is this part, and then the restaurant menu is here, is this part. However, this part on top comes from the about menu because it's so I'm sorry, it's from the app view, my bad. Because the main navigation loads everywhere. So I just put it here. So basically you have the master layout, which contains absolutely everything.
Yep.
And then you have the home view, which asks for the photo header and the restaurant menu, which is this one and this one. And that's how you build the application. And of course, then you can go granular, which every single component loads different things that it needs
Yep.
for itself. Okay, so we already consumed a lot of time. How about if we go to
Yes, let's
the
do it.
second
And I
part of
apologize
the?
with all the questions, but just to kind of put context, let's go.
Let's see if we can at least make this, and I'll be super happy. So now we need to deal with dynamic data. But before we need to deal with dynamic data, we need to create an API. Luckily, because that's why it's called Vue and Strapi, we are using Strapi as a backend application. And as Paul described, it's a headless CMS. But the nice part of this is that it has a user interface. And then we're going to use this interface to build the API. We're not going to code anything. It's basically no code. So here's the way we're going to do this. Initially, we're going to go, let me zoom in a bit. How about now? It's better?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, looks better. Thank you.
So when we're going to build this collection, we need to think, hey, what do we need here? As far as I'm concerned, I need a menu right now. Okay, fine. So I'm going to create one. I'm going to create a collection type, and we're going to call it menu, right? They have some, advanced settings for it, but I'm not going to enable other things. So just keep it as short as possible. So when I'm going to do this, the application is going to say, hey, your IP ID is going to be menu, and then the plural is going to be menus. There is a reason for which Strapi does that, but I'm going to let Paul describe it later on. He knows better.
It's magic. That's all you need to know.
It's magic. It's magic, exactly. So I can see, whoops, what happened here? In my infinite wisdom. I think we discussed this before, talking and building, not the best friends. I'm just going to say continue. I'm going to add a text. So what do we need first? You know what? Let's call this, what do we need to call? So we need the, we know we need a photo, right? We need the menu name, and then we need the price. We need the description. So it's not a lot, but we can put it here. So let's do this. The name of the menu. We can call it menu name. Then it's going to be a short text because we don't need a lot of stuff. I'm going to say finish. I'm going to add another one. We're going to need a price, right? Okay, cool. Then I'm going to say, hey, the price is going to be a number. I'm going to say menu price. format, I almost forgot, we can have a big integer, or we can have an integer or a decimal. We can do any kind of sorts, but I'm just going to keep it for the integer for the moment, just straightforward and simple. And then I'm going to add a description. On the description, we can do a rich text editor, or we can do it just simple text, and then it's going to be something a bit longer, like for description and biography. So that's exactly what we want. Let's do a finish. I'm sorry if I also put a menu description name here, then that should do the trick. And of course, we also need one image. And for this part, we're going to need a media. Let's say menu photo. And I think it's a single media. I don't want to load multiple. That's cool. And now I'm going to save it. So what this actually did for us, basically nothing. I mean, it did something. It created the API, but what I wanted to say, I think I need this, right? So let me go to Marketplace, and I'm going to say documentation, and copy and install. I need to create the documentation. Just bear with me. This will make sense in a moment. You're not stupid plugin documentation. Of course, if we create an API, we're going to need also documentation, so you can see which points we need from the API to actually use. So let's see if this worked for us. Cross the fingers. I'm just going to go back here, hard refresh this stuff. Still building.
You know, like I would never use that documentation plugin, but it's very useful.
Yes, you know the software a lot better than me, so unfortunately for me, not using it.
No. It's not even that. It's the fact that it's like out of mind, out of sight. So until you mentioned that we have this documentation plugin, I actually had no idea. But I'm like, I love Swagger because I love how it like self-documents all your stuff. You know what I mean? And so when I saw you use that, I was like, I should probably start using it too. Yeah, so cool.
Exactly. So in here now we can see that we have this documentation where we have something like user permissions, authentication, login, register, whatever have you. And then we have here the menu, which is just generated for us. So all this stuff that we did here in the content type builder, right? We created the menu with the menu name, menu price, menu description, menu photo. We can now see within the application documentation. So now we can see we can get the menu, we can post the menus, and then when we're going to post the data, we need to say, hey, we need the menu name, we need the menu price, with the menu description, menu photo, and so forth. Right? So yeah, I'm sorry, go on, Paul.
I just was going to say, this is like amazing, and I need to start using this too, because one of the issues I have, like, if you don't have this documentation that's automatically created, sometimes you forget the structure of the object you have to pass to your call. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to do something in Postman, like I'll make mistakes because I'm doing something like I'm not sending the right data structure. And by having this, first of all, you could do all your calls from here, but it also makes it so much easy to know like what it is you're passing and what you're doing. So this is actually a great tip. I just wanted to mention that. Nice.
So just to quickly recap, and then we continue. We know that we want to create multiple menus here and pull in. So for that, we need to create in our database and some data. And for that, we're going to need an API that requires an image, a menu name, menu price, and a description. So that's exactly what we did. We initially create a content type, which generated our API with the exact description that we require. And now we can actually add some content, right? So I can go in here and I can say, let me see if we downloaded something. I think I did something here. Yes. So I created, as I said, I'm using this from Unplush website. They have a very nice way of letting people to use for free for personal projects or even commercial. So we're going to use these free images, right, in here. So let's add something. Let's create a first menu entry. And I'm going to say, I don't know, let me look at this and see if I can get imaginative, like, what's it? Shrimp, something. Shrimp, shrimp stew. Let's call that. And let's put a menu price. I know, like $20 should be enough. And a menu description. Hey, um, check out our amazing shrimp. If I can type shrimp stew with fresh shrimp. Very unimaginative. Cool. So we have this, and now I also add the add an asset, so I can get this one here and say yes, I want this one, and finish this up, upload, and then I have the image and I can save it. So I'm sorry, go on, Paul, because
No. I'm
maybe you
just
want to
so
say something.
amazed, like how using a front end framework and Strappy, you could pretty much build anything, and you don't have to like dive down like that crazy like path of I have to learn full stack right away. Because with tools like Strappy and any like framework like Vue JS, whatever, like for front end, you could build amazing websites. It just still keeps blowing my mind. Like it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's that simple. That's why I started as well. And here's the funny part. I was looking for a super shortcut to actually build some product of mine. And I started with Next, and then I realized I may need to learn some backend, and it was very difficult for me. I started to Laravel, but then I quickly switched to Strap and say, okay, I like it. I don't have to learn more than I actually need to.
Yeah.
Although I know PHP somewhat decently, and I do have intent to learn some more Laravel, but uh, at this moment in time, as it is, there
So
is nothing faster than Strapi to create an API and test the product.
let me ask you a question. And like Artur also like shares similar sentiment. There's a lot of people that hate on PHP. I'm not one of them. And so to me, it's like, hey, there's definitely opportunities. But what is your thinking to continue to like, let's say, invest in PHP and Laravel? Like, why do you still like kind of like do that?
Um, Here's the thing. While Strapi is an amazing tool, there are two other aspects of a coin. On one side, it's a question of jobs on the market. Knowing multiple frameworks will help you not only towards jobs, but creating different projects with different specifications. So you can't use a hammer to brush your teeth.
Right.
You have to use the proper tool. But also knowing Strapi allows you to create very fast things. And now, of course, I'm pretty much sure in your mind will be like, well, what's the downside? There's no downside. It's just a question of set. Think about what is the context, uh, what is the requirements, what is the company thinks. Because usually, what will happen at this point in time. To be honest, I would recommend Strapi to almost everybody. But there's going to be a company say, hey, our people here, 90% of them are just PHP developers, so we can't use Strapi. We need to use PHP. So then I say, okay, we're going to use Laravel, and it is what it is. So that's the way you need to think of things. Laravel, it's an amazing framework on its own, but it's just taking a bit more time to create than, a bit, it's an understatement. Whatever you create with Strapi in a week, it takes you probably a month to build with Laravel.
Yeah. And the
Feel free to
idea,
add
it's
something else.
Arthur says, George, you speak my language. So a lot of people agree. And I think this is like the secret here. It's like when you're starting to learn to code, like stick to one language. I always say JavaScript, but you don't have to listen to me. But the idea is that based on the market that you work at, like, you know, PHP might be the thing that rules the that side of the coin. And if that's what you have to learn to be hireable in your area, that's what you got to do. And I don't know why people hate on PHP. Like, I think it's still like a very good language, very useful language. And there's not that many YouTubers that talk about PHP. Like, literally this guy Stefan and then coding phase. Like, they're the only one that still say PHP is still good. And Arthur, if you know any other good resources for PHP, let me know.
PHP was horrid before PHP 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was extremely horrid. After that, you jump to 6 and started to become decent. And then after 7, it starts to become really good. And PHP 8, it's almost like JavaScript.
Wow.
I mean, if I were to use, for example, right now, if I were to type this thing, you know how you do concatenation and, chaining within the JavaScript, right? So let's say I would say something like, hey, prop dot, something dot, menu dot items dot something, right? Okay, and then you say, hey, is the prop there? Yes. Is this something there? Yes. Is the menu? Yes. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to transform it to PHP 8.
Yeah, so very nice slight variations. Yeah, what's funny,
that's
like
how much it got transferred. Yeah.
When I used to do PHP long time ago, the thing that a lot of people said about PHP, it's so easy to write bad code and it wouldn't like stop you from doing it. And I think that with any language, so it's not like a good excuse, but it was just funny that was like the consensus with earlier PHPs, that it allows you to do pretty much anything you want. But yeah, no, I like PHP. I used to do like WordPress themes back in another timeline.
Yeah, so it's really good. Here is, if I'm to be picky in certain aspects, if I would say, hey, Node versus PHP, Node, it's nice because it has, by default async. It has, built for speed, and you have a lot of libraries, npm install very rapidly. Hey, PHP has ecosystem as well. But the thing is, on Node, you'd have to maintain dependencies on your own. A lot of the times, and guys, Strap, you have the same thing. You have to maintain sometimes, packages which people just don't, they stop developing and get into this very complicated way of doing things, and you have to be careful all the time with the npm packages. While in the other side of the PHP, it's an older language. It's much more stable. And it's a much more mature, than Node it is at this point in time. I know some people might be like, I'm going to hate you for saying that, but that's the reality of things. Node has never been, JavaScript was never meant to be a backend development program, but here we are and we do it. And Strapi, to be honest, is probably one of the few people out there that actually produce something that it's decent, it works fast, it's good to use, and it feels nice, and it's also secure. So that being said, there's no bad language or bad platform. You just need to know what you need to look for.
Yep.
So what were we saying here? White cake. White cake, yes. Amazing white cake with peanuts and almonds milk. That's it. I'm gonna put the final image here. Just gonna upload this, finish, and save, and then publish it. Okay, so far so good. So it's all fine. We have something here, right? So if I actually, let's do this. If I were to go here and say, hey, get me all menus, and I say try it out, and I'm going to say, hey, execute, I'm going to say I'm going to get a forbidden. By default in Strapi, you don't have access to collections unless you are authenticated. So what we need to do here, I need to go to the roles and I'm going to say to public, I say, hey, if you're on public, I want you to give me the find one, the menu, so I could see those menus. So now if I am going to try again, hey, we get back the API with the what do you call with the results. Of course, in here there is something which is very specific to Strapi. As it is right now, you're not going to see the images because you need to do something else. But I think we can test this if you're going to use a Postman or an Insomnia. What was that called, Paul? Because it's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't really remember. When you need to drill deep into the API and request those things.
Oh, populate.
Populate. That's it. It's the populate. Let me do create a request collection. I'm going to say Started Vue demo. I'm going to create a HTTP request. It's going to be a get. We're going to give him the this part, right? Menus, okay, localhost HTTP. I hate this. Why can't we have a copy paste by default here? Doesn't matter. I'm just gonna copy paste it manually. So I'm gonna put it here. API. Something is wrong here, but I'm gonna set to what? Oh no, never mind. It's good. It's good. And then I'm saying menus, right? And I think here it was something like crap. What was it? Populate menus. It was like this. I can't really remember. Populate equal all. It was like this, Paul.
Yep, that should work.
Okay. Amazing. Finally, I can remember something.
I mean, I only remember that one. Everything else, I have a cheat thing that I use.
Yeah, I have that cheat thing as well because I'm not doing it very often. So this is the difference. Now, if I say, hey, give me all the menus, but also populate the what do you call connections? I'm sorry, not connections. I can't properly talk today. Relationships. So you can see it's deeply nested. So now we also have the menu, and now we have the name of the menu photo, and then the formats. And that's the nice part because the library generates for you also the version. For example, thumbnail or small or medium or large. So you can pull in all of this without any problem. So up until this point, we took whatever we think we need from here. We created a collection here, the menu collection with the necessary fields. Then we created some content that we want to see, and then we're able to pull this content and see, hey, it's actually working. So now we have an API that is working. Cool. So far, so good. So now let's try as quickly as possible within a lot of time to populate this and see if we actually did anything. So for this part, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my code. I am going to open the home view, not the components, the restaurant menu, because this is where we're gonna work. I'm not gonna actually need this, but the other aspects that I'm gonna need is for me to look at the utilities and do something here. We have the API query. So this is how we're gonna do it. First, in the API query, we need to put the what was it? The menu, right? So we need /menus to get it. So I'm going to say, hey, this is the menu. I need to say get menu, and I'm going to put the link, which is /menus. That's fine. That's all I need for the moment. And in here, I'm going to say, hey, I need, of course, this is something that I prepare in advance, like get profile, things that usually can get all the time. But hey, I'm just going to reuse maybe something that, let's say maybe delete user, but I'm just gonna go all the way down here, and I'm gonna say, hey, instead of delete user, let's clean this up a bit, because I don't need all these things here. Location, upload, update user, no. Create username, no. I don't need this stuff, and most likely I don't need these things as well. So here I'm gonna say this, hey, get menus, and inside the get menus, I'm gonna say, hey, what is it? Menus, and menu. Let me see this. Menu, get menu. It's my bad. It's menu here. Menu, get menu. So what did I did here? Let me just delete a bit more so it doesn't create confusion here a lot. Like change password. This is another function. This is the way I build these functions, right? So I get a configuration if it's authenticated or not. In this case, we don't need to have any kind of authentication when I send it back to the server. But what I need is to have a method, and the method is get. So I'm going to use access.get, and then the API URL, which in our case is going to be this one, HPL localhost 1337 API. So in case if you're wondering, hey, where do I get this? I'm going to get it from here. So this one's going to be a 7. This one's going to be a 7 as well. So I'm going to get this basically, and this. So in here, I say, hey, to the get method, the API URL, which is going to be this one, 1337 slash API, and then get me the queries, which is this one. And the query is the object menu, which has the get menu entries, which gives me the actual folder, if you want to call it, to get it. So I'm composing all these things that I need. Of course, I don't need an ID at this point in time, so I don't need to pass anything. And the configuration will be like, hey, if it doesn't require authentication, then it's going to be no problem for you. So what's next? Now I need to actually create the function to populate all this problem, or all this part. I'm sorry, because it's not a problem yet. So just for the sake of not wasting a lot of time, just gonna go here, just gonna put this part here. I'm gonna copy all this beautiful code, which I'm gonna explain what it does. Actually, let me put this above. So what I'm going to do is I also need to import the API calls, because I almost forgot about this. So what do I need to do? I need to import the API calls, because that's the part that I'm going to require. And then I'm going to say, hey, I need a function. And the function is, hey, get restaurant menu. Right, this is the function, which I'm going to call it when the application starts. And for this, when the page loads, I'm sorry, mounted is going to be function, which is completed function. I'm going to call this and say, hey, when you mount this component, please get me the restaurant menu. And for this, I'm also need to import unmounted. This is how you do it in Vue. You need to call certain methods from Vue. That's why it's called composition API. So if you need something like reference, or I don't know, watch components, or any other kind of function that Vue helps you work with. So in this case, it's mounted. And unmounted, when the component will mount, then I'm going to get this restart. So what am I going to do? For example, I'm going to clean this a bit because some of this stuff I'm not going to need. I'm going to need a constant which is going to say, hey, data response, a const here. I'm going to say not data, but the menu. I'm going to say, hey, the menu it's empty. I'm going to say the menu. So it's going to be a reference to an empty array for the moment. Now I'm saying, hey, get me these application API calls, but the function name is going to be, just a moment, I'm going to put this here so you can see it. The function name is going to be this one, get menu. So we should have something here. And I'm going to load it to the menu. Let's see if we actually did something, because let me get this somewhere around here. Doesn't matter. I'm going to say, hey, the menu, and then if I'm going to refresh this and nothing crashes, so aborted, not found. Configuration, store out. Okay, so we have just small little problems. Config.js, it doesn't matter because I don't need a config in this case. I can drop the config as far as I'm concerned. That's one of the problems. Store out. What's this? Stores.out. Again, that's the other problem because I'm calling the wrong parts of the town. Use card source count. Okay. Store. So the store is the card. Just a moment. Where's my store card? I am passing on the wrong parts of the things. Control B. It's not scores card. It's actually store use card. Use card. That's correct. Define store. That's what I'm doing. Getters. Blah blah blah. It should work. So let's see what is wrong. If I call for just a moment, so I may have done some screwery here. That's not the one. Where's my main JS? I'm importing Pina. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. And exit route. That's correct. That's what I'm doing as well. Core, define, use card items. That's correct as well. That's fine. So utilities. API calls. That's what I'm doing as well. My God, what did I did? This is one of those embarrassing moments.
No, it's not embarrassing. To be honest, like this is why I love like when people code live, because this shows the reality of what it's like building something. Because like a lot of people that are just starting out, they feel like, you know, oh my God, all these people, they do everything right. Everything's perfect. And every developer that I like work with,
it's not.
Like yesterday we were like, I mean, like at Strappy Discord, we have Boy here in the chat. Yeah, and he says debugging is part of the process, and he's like absolutely right. And like he's a great developer. We have so many other developers, and I've never seen someone write code that just worked like 100%. You're always debugging, and that is like a normal process of learning to code. And a lot of people get dismotivated because they watch YouTubers that show super up, like thing that they prepared, reviewed, double checked, triple checked, quadruple checked, you know, probably had somebody else write the code, and then they shared it like, look how perfect I made it on the first go. And that's not how it works. You know, that's not the reality.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm totally honest with you. When I code and talk, I'm the worst guy you could possibly have on a live show.
You're the second worst guy. Like you haven't seen me code and talk. I literally freeze and don't know what. Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Let's see if we figure this out, right? So we know that for the moment we have an empty thing, but that's no problem. Okay, so far so good. We eliminated the parts of the thing. I'm sorry, go on.
So let's say you get data in your template. Are you able to console log it somehow? And if so, where would you do that? The only reason I asked this because I couldn't figure that out. Like when I was troubleshooting
Yes.
a Vue.js app. Is there like a best practice of doing that?
Let me just kill everything. I'm just cleaning a bit and no config, because I don't need the config as well. But the API URL, that's something I deleted too much. Just a moment. I told you if I talk and
No worries, no worries.
yeah, this one I need. So config.js. Am I missing config.js? That's why. Ah, yes, I am missing config.js because I'm a tool Muppets. That's why. No problem. Let me quickly switch something a bit. Yes, I was missing this one. That's no problem. It's just a small thing which easily can be resolved. I'm just gonna paste this here for the moment and see where this was directly inside the route. If I'm not mistaken, it's direct. Yeah, the level. So here's the thing. I am heavily reusing parts of my code as well. It's just config, so I need to put this in here. Yes. So now I can close this part because I don't need it. So now I have the configuration part. So technically this should work. So I have a config. And now, of course, if I have a config, I need to look just a bit in the config. Yeah, the thing is just that I'm reusing parts of my code because it's easier. For example, exports like API, like this one doesn't even make sense. I'm sorry, console aborted. Stores.out, of course, stores.out. I don't need stores card. No, actually use this. Stores.out. I don't have an out, and most likely I don't have this either, and I don't need this whole thing altogether. Technically, it should now somewhat rework stuff. Right. That was from parts of my project. The problem with, let's be honest, normally when you do a setup, it's going to take you a lot of time. So when you start the project, usually a setup takes you anywhere between a few days to a week or more. And it's not a joke. Really, that's how much it can actually take for you to do all these things, that we just did in a couple of minutes. You always have errors and things that maybe is not working properly and so forth. So hey, that's not an issue. That's not a problem. So it's not a something that to be ashamed or anything. But that's the way development works. But here you go. Look what we have.
Nice. And then how did
Right?
you console log it? I kind of missed that part because we were in the thing.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
retrace a bit. Hey, before we retrace this, I just want for the people in the who's watching us right now. When I'm going to finish this, I'm going to submit everything to the repository again, and you can use the repository to look at it, right? So not worry about that. Actually, I'm going to do this now as well. Let's add it commit. I'm going to say live fixings and hopefully not shameful. So it's going to be there with all the adjustments. So now let's retrace a bit, right? So for us to get to this point, we had to do a few steps. One of them is for us to import certain things like the API calls, and then do a bit of a setup, create a function, an async function that has a try catch here. And then we're going to say, hey, bring me the API calls with get menu. And we remember how this was done. For the API call, we say, hey, we have a function It is the get menu, which we call Axios. We have a getter, we have all these things, which we compose the entire address, and then we put this data in a variable, which is this one. For the moment, what happened is, because this variable is reactive, basically if I update the variable, immediately shows on the screen, I place this directly at the level of the template. You see?
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
So it's interpolation here.
Nice.
And then that's
so that's
exactly
how you got to do it.
how we saw it. Of
Yeah,
course,
makes
I can
sense.
also do a console log. So, right now I can remove this from here. We have a console log, and usually I like to do it like this: the menu, and then I say, hey, the menu. So I know exactly what am I seeing here. So I can see the entire thing. It's like, hey, this part. But usually I do this dot value because I need to get the value of it. So now if I open it, I get the exact value of the datatypes. Something went astray here. Okay, cool. So now let's populate this part, right? Make it dynamic. So now I'm gonna scroll down a bit. Here's the thing that maybe for some of you might be disconcerting. Why do I have two windows? It's exactly the same window, but I usually split it. Some people work on it like this, and they work,
Yeah.
on and just scroll up and down until they vomit. I don't like that, and I split this all the time.
That's a good tip, actually. That way you could
I'm
see like your
the split part, yeah.
nice. You know what? God damn it. This is
You
such a
hate
good
me.
tip because I find myself, I'm like in Remix, you have your like action unloaders like on top, which gets the data, and you
Yeah.
put your like database, not your data, but you could put your database, but you put your business logic in there for whatever you want to do. And I always find myself scrolling up and down like an idiot. Here's the fix. Thank you.
Yeah,
Not-
Vue has a actually, if you were to load some of the extensions, they have one which automatically they split for you the window, and then they collapse on one. I'm sorry, they actually basically they do what I did now. If you are lazy and you don't want to, split yourself the window, but that's how I got used to work with it, and it's a bit faster because I always have the values here. I can check certain things if I forgot some stuff, so I don't need to do this all the time. Okay, so let's do this dynamically, and then we can call it a wrap and have some Q&A. Okay, cool. So I don't need this part. I'm just gonna put some things here, and I don't need this menu name. Actually, you know what? Let's call this description here. Never mind. So let me figure out a bit something. So we have the menu and the image. Where's the image? The image, what did we do the image? Oh, I remember now. This is a bit more complicated because it's a background image, but we're gonna fix this. That's no problem. So first things first, what is our menu starting? So let's look into this. This is the other part which I usually do. It's much more nicer when I view it with the development. So I say, hey, this is where the entire menu kind of gets populated. So I don't need to do it in this one, but I need to do it this level. So deflex flex row. So that will be this one. Okay, so then I'm going to do a vif. It's like a for loop. Vif, and then I'm going to say, hey, item index in what do I need to populate the menu. I'm going to put inside the menu. And basically what I'm telling, hey, for item and index, it's like a for loop inside the menu. And behind this, it does basically like a for loop. For e equals 0, where e greater or smaller than the menu length increment, and then do the loop. But also Vue, which has something specific, they need the key, so they know what are you targeting, the value, the index, and so forth. In this case, I'm going to go by index. Oops. In index, I'm highly dyslexic. Okay, so far so good. So now, technically, I should have the menu dot value. Technically, but let's see why in operator is undefined. Oh my God, what am I doing before? I told you, don't speak in code. If is a conditional statement. Somebody probably was already laughing inside the chat. Yes, it's a v4, so it's a for loop. Oh my God! Never say I didn't say. I'm terrible. So now, if I refresh this, should do some looping there. Of course, it doesn't do the necessary loop, but let's see a bit what it does. Key index in the menu. So you know what? Let me do this. Yeah, now we have it. Voila. So that's how you do a loop
Nice.
inside inside Vue. I know in React you have to do it yourself. .map and whatever,
Yeah.
do
Use
something like
JavaScript, but here you have like beautiful
map
methods.
something and then whatever.
And
But
then, of
because
course,
this
people
is,
could find all these tips on the Vue documentation for all the different ways of doing things. But yeah, this is cool.
100%, they explain exactly how this works and why should they like that, because it's a good practice anyway. But it's a lot simplified. So now all we need to do, now I need to go to the console and say, hey, I need to populate this stuff. But before we do that, because now we have a loop, I'm going to say you know what? I'm going to say margin bottom about 4. No, doesn't want. Refresh. No, it doesn't. So, oh, I'm in the wrong part of town. It's on this one. Sorry. Margin bottom. Let's do a. Actually, no. Margin top. Let's do a 5. This might be too much. So I'm going to do a maybe a 3. No, that's cool. So we have something. Actually, if I want, I can do something even better. I can do HR. I'm sorry. Oops. Did I save it? Most likely not. Or it's not even part of the. Yeah, this is the one. I'm not sure what's the problem with this one. Why it doesn't want? Oh, I know why. Because never mind. I know what I did. The mistake is this one. So the v4, I should have done the v4 in another part now. Yeah, let me do this. Just a moment. This is an HTML thing. Yeah, so I'm gonna go the scene. I'm gonna take this part and I'm gonna move it here. And now if I do an HR, sorry. Now we have something, right?
Yep.
Which is a lot better than one we had before. And I'm gonna kill this, and I'm gonna do it as such. Not a flex row, but I'm gonna do a margin y about 3. So now I have something that's like a delimiter between the menus, so at least we see when one starts and when one finishes.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, cool. So now what I need to do is to replace this thing. And then I'm going to say, hey, item dot, what's this? What do we call it? We called it item dot attributes. So I need to say attributes. And then I'm not counting the 0, 1, 2 because this is part of the array, which is the index. I'm just going to count it from the attributes entry directly. And then I'm going to need the menu name, right? I'm going to say the menu name. And of course, I should start to see this. We're going to format this a bit. Very nice, no? And also Bootstrap, it's also like a declarative class, and I'm sorry, not declarative class. How do you call it in Tailwind? Utility class. Text capitalize, and voila. So we also have something beautiful here. So if you go about the same direction, now we need this. I'm going to
Bram was
say,
asking what do you use for your CSS classes and using Bootstrap, right?
yeah, I'm using Bootstrap. Menu price. There you go. I'm not sure where it's 2020, but I think probably I put 20 on both of them. We're going to test in a moment. And then in here, it should be the description. So probably it's the wrong, it's called attributes name, menu description. Probably I did something wrong. Oh, right. I can't write properly. So now I also have the description. So the last thing that we need to do is to add the images. So now the images, because if I'm going to look here on this part, let's say one of this, right? Here is the first problem. So the first problem is that we didn't pass in the
Populate prop.
the populate, right? So the best way to actually add the populate is directly at the level of the where is this? The API part. The API.
Your query objects, yeah.
Queries object, right? So I'm going to put in menu. I'm going to do it like that. So now if I'm going to refresh, I'm going to look one more time here. Technically and luckily for me, I do have the.
I love Bram's like, what was your reasoning to choose Bootstrap and not, for example, Tailwind? And my answer was going to be Tailwind was the reason for not using it.
It's very simple. As far as I'm concerned, for me, it's a question of, hey, do I want to be nitpicky about creating and reinventing from scratch the entire style, which would probably take a week to a month? Or do I want to be fast and use something that's already a good style to use? Because Bootstrap can be pretty well customized. If you need the insane amount of customization, then Bootstrap is not for you. But in my case, Bootstrap works very well, and it's a fast library and it's easy to use. So that's why I use it.
Yeah, for me, like I like the idea of like using stuff you're familiar with and also stuff that allows you to go from idea to market, or basically fulfilling your customer's need quickly. And like, I mean, even Vue with Bootstrap and Strappy, like you could literally see here, and I know it's like a simple example of how you could build literally websites for your clients or what have you that are full functional, which are basically full stack applications. And you're, instead of recreating stuff from scratch, you're kind of using the power of like Vue JS framework, Strappy as an API backend framework for you, and then Bootstrap to get the styling done really quickly that you could do some, customizations. Because you could overwrite Bootstrap styles if you need something specific too. It's not like it's like a super big issue.
Yes, that is true.
Actually, although I did switch to Tailwind lately, so but I use Bootstrap forever. I used Bootstrap forever because it was my favorite. I used to love React Bootstrapped, which has Bootstrap style components. So wonderful.
So I did something wrong here.
Because I literally switched to Tailwind like last year, but prior to that, I was like Bootstrap, 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 and then quietly I was like Tailwind, Tailwind, Tailwind.
Menu photo. I knew I did something wrong. And of course, it's again something wrong, but we'll check one thing at a time here. Target 0.
The spelling is the death for everyone.
Yeah, it's menu photo data, right? So we do have a menu photo attributes, menu photo data. Then we have again attributes. That's correct, right? I'm just and then we have inside the attributes we have formats, right? And then we have large. And then I have what? This should be correct, right? Attributes photo data.
Did I close my screen?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
attributes, main photo,
data
attributes,
attribute
formats,
formats.
large,
What do you?
and
What is it saying?
navigate
Because you need to
URL.
prepend the Strappy backend URL here, because you're only getting the ending of
Oh,
it. So you
right.
need to put your local
Yes, yes,
host, like whatever. Yeah.
yes. Of course, you are absolutely right. That's why. So for this, I need what? Let me look a bit at the environment. Panama stuff. Yes, I need this basically. I think it's the API or just this one.
I think it's
Just
just
this one.
that one. If
Yeah,
it doesn't work, you
let's
probably need
quickly
that.
check.
But I think it's, yeah,
Let's quickly
1337
check.
slash whatever the upload URL is. Yep, exactly. Bram says just the URL.
Yeah, I kind of need to do it maybe here, and then take this. And then technically, I just don't want it because I know what is the problem here. My style is a background image to begin with. Shouldn't be like that. And then we have a URL, and then I have something like that, right? And when Paul is right, he is right.
I only get the, like, I just remember the answers from like Derek and Bogey and other people from our community, and I just repeat the answers that I heard before. I'm not a genius. I'm a repeater.
Repeater. So let me delete this and let me do this part, which is import. Pardon me. I need to create another one, which is this one, and we need to import what? The env. I need to import the this one, right? So it's not the base URL. It's actually this one. Maybe only in the source tab module. Oh, I know what's the problem now. You know what? For the quickness of the things, I'm just going to use it like that because then I have to spend a bit more time to put a few more things in there. So anyway, now we solved the background image as well. So I can now go directly here, and I'm going to remove the background image, which I don't need because I'm importing at this level. So I said, now let's test that actually this data is coming for real from that part, right? So we now have the fish chips 2020. Okay, so let's try this one maybe 17. And then if I'm going to refresh this, hey, there we go, we have 17. Right. So far, so good. Any questions?
No, this was good. I think it's a great introduction. I think the most important part is for folks to kind of understand there's lots of different things to learn. So picking something that you enjoy doing, but also has opportunity in your area to get hired. Keeping that in mind, it's not, there's that thing like something you enjoy doing, and also the thing it's like, hey, are there jobs in my area that I could find based on the technology I learned? And so I know you're very big advocate for Vue JS, and from your experience, there are jobs available in Vue JS. And is it safe to say that choosing something like Vue, because it's not, let's say, as big as React, which might have like a saturated market for developers, you might have an easy opportunity to find a job with Vue JS, or would you say it still depends?
So I'm not even sure how to.
Oh,
Not
hold
sure
on,
my
I'll bring
screen
you back.
longer.
It's me. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's me. No big
Oh, stop
deal.
sharing. Great.
It's of course Paul, who doesn't know how to use his own computer, which is fine.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question because I was focused
No,
on
no, no
that
worries. I
part.
was gonna say, like, I know you're a bit advocate for Vue.js, and from your experience, do you think like a plus of learning Vue.js because maybe it's not as popular as React, which could have a saturated, let's say, market where there's everybody wants to get a job in React, that Vue.js might be an easier way to get hired, or do you think it depends?
No, Vue.js is not easier to get hired, I think. From my own personal experience, I can tell you when I started almost 4 years and a half ago, uh, there were very very few jobs in Vue.js. Now the situation has changed a bit. It's still, of course, React has the larger bulk of jobs out there just because it was the first. And then you'll find also Angular, quite a lot of jobs. But Vue, it's really underneath them. Uh, at this point in time, I would say yes, it's a better chance. But most of the companies that hire for Vue.js, for some reason, also are looking for Laravel as well. For some reason,
Hmm.
Laravel got attached with Vue in very close quarters, and for some reason, people like, hey, we heard about Laravel, so that means people are using Vue, so that's it. They didn't realize that, hey, with Laravel you can use anything else. It's not
Yeah,
necessary. It's
that's
React,
kind
of
of
course, you can use anything else.
interesting. So if someone was going the PHP route and learning Laravel, a better framework would be like if they were to learn one would be the Vue.js, of course, just because of that association.
As far as I'm concerned, you have to look at Vue as another tool. I think we did say at the beginning, what are you looking for? Do you want a job? Granted, if you want a job and you have time to learn only one thing, then learn React. If you want surety and guarantee that you might get a job, all the competition is very high
Mm.
because React it's very used and there are a lot of people and they. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys look at the requirements, but they're like, hey, we're looking for JavaScript React juniors with 5 years of experience. JavaScript juniors with 5 years of experience. Like, come on, it's
Wow.
I find this really crazy in the past couple of years, and they're doing this, of course, because people they don't seem to understand that hey, if it's a junior, you don't expect him to, for once, not even know things because he's a junior, and if he knows stuff, as a junior should never have more than 1 year. Hey, you did this for fun in high school, fine, you already have like 5 years experience, so for that's good. But in general, junior should be hey, maximum 1 year, but uh, Vue.js is nice to learn if you want to expand your universe. So it's not only one thing. Granted, you'll never know everything properly, and I find I'm saying this with a grain of salt because some people say, "Hey, you would know, of course, if you have like 20 or 50 years." Yeah, 20, 50 years, I'll be retired, so it doesn't make any sense any longer. But if you're on a job, look for React first and Vue as a second. If you just want to build projects for fun, learn anything you want. But
Yeah,
I'd recommend probably Vue.
and I appreciate like the honesty because like that's exactly the same thing. Like for instance, I love Remix. I don't really particularly like Next.js, but if someone is trying to get hired and they're like, "What should I learn?" I'll be like, "Well, learn React and Next.js." Even though like it's not my favorite thing. Like I really really love Remix, but at the same time, it's like you got to follow like the money and things where there's more opportunity. Because the first, like if you're just starting out, by the way, like I know Artur said that like don't be picky, take the first job you get, because if you have no experience working, you need to get into the market as fast as possible. So take whatever you take. Like for instance, my first job, I got hired as a React developer, but I was told if I wanted to keep my job, I needed to start learning C# and like ASP.NET. And so I was like, okay, like I'm gonna learn it on the job. But I literally like took the first job I got. I didn't try to, compare and look around because I'm like, I'm brand new. Like I might not know if I even have a second opportunity. Like I heard stories of people like saying this job pays shit. I'm not gonna. I gotta stop swearing on the YouTube, by the way. I guess it's a new policy. They're like, I'm not gonna take my first job. They paid like not enough money, And then for next 2 years, 3 years, they can't get another opportunity. And so it's like, Jesus, like my first React job, and don't laugh at me, actually, put in the chat, how much do you think I earned as a React developer in United States an hour on my first React job? Just somebody put it in the chat. I know
I don't
there's like
know.
a huge delay. Let me just put it in the chat because the delay is long.
Here's a fun fact. When I started in development and programming, and I mean, there was a time in my life in which I was jobless for almost 4 years, and it's not a joke.
Wow.
But in this time, I survived because I did freelancing. Literally, no company, because I come from the design part of things, and as a designer, which at this point in time I have almost 25 years experience, and I work for the uh, top-notch corporations. I worked for Deutsche Bank, Raiffeisen Group. I worked for European Commission. I worked for top top companies, and there come a time in which you get to a certain age in design, and companies that are like, hey, we're using a filter. Is this guy over 40? Yes, bam, that's it. We don't hire him any longer. And that's what happened to me after already I was reaching a certain age, and I realized a real huge drop in offers. So I got lucky because I started to look into programming before that, and then I survived 4 years unemployed, barely, because I knew a bit of programming. And some people say, "Hey, why don't you work for us or do these kind of things?" Until I actually start to do proper programming. It might not be the case for everybody in the same, but what I'm trying to say is, even if you go in development, you have to keep an open mind to what's out there. Do you want a job? Okay, then you need to look what is requested and learn that thing to the best place you can possibly learn to be as good as possible. You want to build projects for fun, then learn the tools that you want to learn. So it's as I said, for me it was Vue.js. For example, I do a contract only once every 2 years or 1 year and a half. It depends, because I'm targeted Vue, Strapi, and now I'm just looking to learn, for example, Elixir and Laravel this year. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm sorry. Maybe people have other questions.
No, if you have questions, like let us know. They're just chatting about stuff like, how much you get paid, like the first like job. And so I was saying how my first job literally paid me $13.75 an hour, but I still like, I'm not saying people should take that pay of a lowing job. I was just like, it was the beginning of COVID, and I was like, I just need work. I also worked like part time at a supermarket to make ends meet. But what I was going to say, the experience of working, I should have left that job earlier, but I stayed there for almost 1.5 years. I should have left in like exactly after a year. But that experience was way worth more than my first yearly income, because the second job I was able to get not only easier, but I also got paid like, significantly more money compared to when I started. And, getting like, if you have no experience and come like untraditional way, like self-taught or what have you, think of your first job as a place where you're going to get paid to learn, and don't be too picky. Just get in the door, because it's the hardest. The first job is almost like an impossible feat. It's like the hardest thing to get, especially if you're like self-taught. But once you get it, things do become easier. So keep that in mind, you know?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is true. After a certain time, yes, you get that. There's going to always be some weird things here and there, but what is far more important is to never stop learning. For example, now I realize after working in development, after I know the past 5 years and a half, maybe more, 6, I think. Um, I went back and I started to learn mathematics to a certain, because I need to be to a certain degree. Hey, it all depends what you want to do. However, if you're a developer, there might be some situations where you need to do some shopping carts. You need to do just a bit of mathematics. It's not. It's the basic algebra, this kind of stuff. But while doing so, I realized, hey, I'm reaching a threshold, and I want to jump into maybe C sharp, and I want to build higher software. Okay, so I hit a a certain level. I said, okay, now I need to go back and learn mathematics. I'm using, for example, Brilliance or Brilliant.org, which is a very nice website. By the way, nobody paid me to do this advertising. I'm just saying what I'm using because it's very nice and to learn those things. And actually, I ended up there because I was looking into building some e-shop shopping cart, and not this one, it's just another project. And I ended up in having some issues with calculating return and so forth. Like, what the hell? And I need to look into some functions and algorithms, and I got lost in there. I said, okay, it's clearly not working. I need to go back, learn a bit of mathematics so I can jump to certain level. But you have to understand something. In programming, there are two tiers of jobs. One that is called data science, and the other, which is everything else. I'm not joking, literally everything else. Data science will partake anything that is high-end engineering, implementation in automotive, implementation in specialized search engines, AI, space age, weaponry, and so forth. This is where the mathematics will be required at the highest level. Anything else, playing a video on Netflix, guarantee you they're not going to ask you about your math, although I'm pretty much sure they're going to put you on a stupid interview just to ask insane questions so you can then say copy paste URL, split, slice,
Yeah, yeah.
combine, and then spit it up. uh, I'm not joking, that's literally what you're gonna do. So then you have to put in the balance. Hey, what is the level of mathematics I need? Okay, so I need to just build a stupid website like we did. It doesn't really matter if you know the multipliers and deduction. That's pretty much it.
I know a lot of question asked about like freelancing, and I know you said there was a period in your life where you couldn't get hired, so you did freelancing, like, and that's like out of like necessity. But normally when people ask me this, I say if you can't get a job first so you could build experience. But at the same time, like, this is one thing I do like about coding is that you develop a skill which allows you to solve problems and freelance and like doing something freelancing. And from your standpoint, because I know we had that conversation before, because I'm always like, oh man, you have so much knowledge about product design, whatever. Why don't you make a course and sell it? But in your mind, you want to build like products and services. Can you just talk a little bit about that and why
Um,
targeting specifically business to businesses?
the one thing, the one thing that never sticks to me, and I know, I said, for you people out there, especially United States, please don't take what I'm about to say as a arrogance thing and so forth. But this is in my mind. Education should always be free, and nobody should ever ask money for education. The only reason for which us right now can afford to talk through this amazing technology and build whatever it is because through the entire human history civilization, education has been passed freely and willingly in most of the cases through one generation to another. If those people wouldn't have bothered to actually give you for free all these things, you would not really have access now. So this is me.
Yeah.
I don't expect everybody to do the same thing. It's clearly
Yeah.
a teacher needs to be, and so forth.
To make,
But
you
hey,
got to feed your kids
that's
though. You know what I
that's
mean?
why that's why we pay taxes. Taxes you
Pay the
pay
teachers.
pays for education. For some
Yeah.
reason, in the United States,
Got it
it
all
pays
fucked up.
for.
It's
I
not
don't want to say what for pay, but they pay for something else.
the craziest thing, like
So
anybody I talk to from another country, the way they talk about college, how accessible it is and how you don't go into this insane debt. And I'm sure it's not every country, but everybody's like, oh, it's like this, and it was like so cheap, and or it was free. Where in United States, like I went to my first semester in college was in 1998. I went to a private school. It was in 98, it was 40,000 a year
Jesus.
because I wasn't like smart enough to go to a community, like not community college, but the state school. I didn't quite make
Here's
it.
a good tip for you. You take $40,000. You move to Europe, especially to Romania. Those $14,000 will last you 4 to 5 years if you're careful here. I'm not joking. And then you will
Wow.
do the university for free. They'll probably ask you to pay like $200 or $300 per
All right.
semester.
I'm gonna go get my computer science degree in Romania. I'm gonna do that. As
um, I know I wanted to say something else. Or in continuation to this, so eventually I did something about YouTube and so forth, and I wanted to share my knowledge. I mean, that's why you eventually invited me, because you saw some value there. But as much as I tried to look at this qualitatively, the problem with YouTube, they look at it only quantitatively. They
yep.
couldn't give a rat's ass about
Nope.
if it's quality or not. Does people view, click, like, and so forth? Fine. We just make ads and so forth. And then I started to get into this, say, hey, so what if I end up at some point in time and I don't have anything meaningful to do? Am I going to resort to start putting stupid memes and invent stuff that should not be there? It's already a lot of people who are doing this. What I wanted is to say, hey, I want you to take this, learn it, do it like that. That's how I do it. Feel free to use it or not. That's pretty much it. But then while building projects, because this is how I learned actually programming a lot of the time, because a lot of people are like, hey, how do I start, how do I start? Well, first, um, look into social networking. I think a lot of people don't understand right now the easiest and the fastest track to development is actually social.
Yeah,
If
networking.
I wouldn't been on Discord, I'm not kidding you. Most of the high-end programming that I know right now is because I fast-tracked it while spending time on Discord. I mean, Paul, all the time almost all the time I'm in strappy meetings. I say, hey, how do you do this, or how do
Yeah,
we do
I'm in the
this,
same
and so
boat.
forth.
That's why I'm glad we have Bogey, who's on Discord, Bram here on YouTube, because I like a lot of times people come for me with questions, and half the time I don't know the answer, and so I'm like, "Hey, Bogey, how you do this?" And it's such a great way to learn in the community, and also like the networking part of like a lot of people don't like it, but I just want to say that it's true. Like every job I got was because of networking and knowing and having a connection rather than blindly sending a resume. And that's another like very important part to consider, is that networking and learning in a network is the fastest way to get hired. And
Exactly,
I
exactly.
don't say you have to agree with me or disagree with me. Those are just the facts. And I made a video one day where I talked about where every job I had and how I got it. And it was because I like met someone in a meetup, or I knew somebody, or I had a friend, or like whatever. And that's kind of like the fastest way to do it. Even my Strappy job, it was because uh, I went on a podcast from this YouTuber, coding addict, John Smilga, and he happened to invite Daniel, who was another developer advocate at Strappy. And during that interaction, I made a joke. I'm like, "Hey, Daniel, like." Because Daniel made a joke. He's like, "Oh, Paul, you love Strappy so much. Why don't you apply?" I'm like, "You know what, Daniel? I'm going to apply and I'm going to say you are my reference." He's like, "Oh, hey, go ahead, do it." And that would have never happened if I didn't have that introduction and that connection, right? That networking. So it's super duper important. I had like, um, yeah, there's something else like, there's so many things that happen from networking. It's a good point.
It's not just a question of finding job, but far more important is you have access to unlimited number of teachers, and it's not a joke, guys. Really, you learn so much stuff so much faster. You can't possibly get this for granted. It's really a huge asset. And Discord, I think, should be probably your top priority. Just go look for channels that you're interested, like JavaScript, Vue, Strappy, I don't know, React, whatever have you, and then spend time with the communities and learn from them while building projects. And the second point is, I got to this point also, getting help constantly, live talking to people on Discord, but building projects. If you don't build projects, you will
Yeah.
not get to
The
that point. That's the
super,
problem.
yeah, big building stuff from scratch, 100%.
How do you get projects? There are only two ways. Either you have an idea that you want to build a software, and that's how I started. Hey, I want to build this software. How the hell do I do it? Okay, I need to learn this. Okay, so I'm going to start to learn this, and I'm going to try to build software. Of course, I built it multiple times till I got to actually build something properly, because I was a noob. And then the other part is, hey, there are some websites where people offer projects for free that you can build. For example, Free Code Camp. They have projects. You also learn, but you also build projects, which is pretty good. Or, for example, it's something that is called exercise. Let's see if I can, probably this one. I'm going to try to post it in the guest chat, or maybe I should give it to you on Discord.
I found the guest chat
And then,
eventually. I got it.
okay. So that's a good place as well to do some exercises and actually learn programming. So whatever you do, focus on building projects. I think that is by far the most important thing. I don't know if you guys maybe have other questions, or you, Paul, may have other questions, or you want to chat somewhere. I'm up for it.
I know it's
Still
like
a bit.
probably pretty late, so I don't want to keep you too long. Like, what time is it for you now?
It's almost 9 p.m., but
Damn, yeah,
it's
yeah,
somewhat almost
yeah.
just for.
No, 100%. I think like one thing about like getting involved in the community, I would say, uh, you know, don't just go and I know this is going to sound weird, but like when you're part of a community, you might be shy to like answer questions and get involved and help, but you should start as soon as you can, because you don't want to be part of a community where you take, but never give back. Like there's always someone newer than you who will have a question. So you want to have that two-way conversation where you're being involved rather than using the community to get ahead, if that makes sense. Like the more you give, the more people will give you back. And that's kind of something I've been like trying to live like by, like to try to give more and more and more, because it's important to have a relationship where you're never having the mindset where you use others to get ahead, if that makes sense. And kind of like to your point, like why you believe like education should be free. I do agree with that. The only thing I would say is that if like you like at the same time, like if you do that and that's your main thing and taxes are not paying for it, then you should still be able to like make some money to feed your family. That was like the only argument like I
That
was
is
going to
true.
make is,
That is
yeah,
true.
it's like you can't sacrifice like your well-being and not be able to take care of your family if, let's say, teaching is your main role. But but coming back to like the question of creating products, and why would you say do like B2B rather than like business to business versus like people do projects for mom and pop shops?
The thing is like this. When you build things for yourself, you actually exit your comfort zone much more easily, because there's nobody over your shoulder say, hey, do it, do it. Have you done? Have you done? Have you done? No, there's nobody there. It's your project. You can build it in one day. You can build it in 10 years. It's your project. Of course, it's always good to impose yourself some deadlines. Hey, in 6 months, I'm going to build this. I don't care how. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to say, hey, is it wrong? Is it good? Fine, you just do it and you learn and you learn and you learn. Versus if you just jump in directly into contracting or freelancing, then somebody will have for sure some expectancies from you, and then you'll have to build according to what they need. And then somebody always going to be on your shoulder and say, hey, have you done it, have you done it? So it's a bit of a pressure. So there are two different worlds. However, I still recommend to everybody, if possible, to work at least once in a larger team or medium team or even a small team. Learn from some people, learn some craft, and then go ahead and build. And as funny as it is, a lot of people are like, hey, but Elon Musk is just he never worked for anybody. He said, no, you failed the point. He was on a high school. He was on a university. He learned. He did some apprenticeship. He learned. And when he was in the last year, of the university, he was thinking to do a PhD and so forth. He said, screw this. I'm going to build a business. But up until that point in time, because he knows development and programming, did you know he built two companies by programming himself with his brother as well? Uh,
Wow.
they did PayPal, and they did also the initial company that was called Zip. I think they built Zip software, something like that. I can't really remember exactly, but Elon Musk is a very smart guy. So when I hear this, yeah, but he never worked for anybody. No, you felt the point. You need to focus on how do you get the information, how to learn to get to that point. So it doesn't matter if you work for anybody or you get the education from somewhere else, because the end goal is the same. But let's say it's not everybody, it's Elon Musk. I'm pretty much sure I'm Dumbest Knight in regards to His Highness. But in my case, it helped me to also work at least once or maybe multiple times for different companies as a developer and say, hey, okay, this is how people are doing. I started to, exit more and more of my comfort zone because of pressure of time and so forth. But at the end of the day, to why you go into development, it's only up to you. If you want to build a project or if you want to have just a job, then you just need to search accordingly and, learn things accordingly. If that makes sense for you people.
Yeah. No. Perfect. Yeah, no,
Okay.
that was awesome intro for Vue.js. I hope a lot of people found valuable. I know we went for forever. I apologize for taking more time than you planned, but sometimes that's what happens with like live
No,
streams. But that was
it's okay, man.
really good, and you know, yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, Vue.js is cool. I think like you said, people need to like find something that they enjoy working with, because sometimes learning to code could be
True.
like so it is difficult, and there's a lot of like frustration and troubleshooting. So if you're doing something that you enjoy and that makes sense to you and you can be productive faster, like definitely, don't let a YouTuber tell you what not to learn. Like I know I always promote like React, but like the point of being a human being, you get to decide like and pick and choose like what makes you feel better and good and learn those things.
Here's a maybe a final point that a lot of people don't understand, because people are, yeah, React is number one. It's like, hey, at this point in time, there are technologies that are far superior than React, much more easier to work with and much more pleasant. But you know why React is where it is? It's because it has been hyped a lot. It has moved quite a lot. It was in a time where neither Vue or other, tools that were, came later and then improved things by a lot. It was alone, and people it was a literal paradigm shift, because up to that point in time there is nothing in terms of a library of JavaScript. There's nothing in that direction. You only had jQuery, a best case scenario, and JavaScript. That's it. And then it
Yeah.
was this huge shift, and that's why it was there. And then the companies just plowed in, and then you had also Angular, and then you start to add more technologies. But the problem is, when you get to the high level of the corporation, like, hey, we need to build this new generation of Netflix. What the hell are we using? We use React because everybody using it. That's it.
Yeah.
Literally, nobody is hiring. Hey, let's hire an architect. Let's hear his opinion and whatever. And you know what they do? They go, hey, pick up the architect from Amazon, get the other guy from Google, take the other guy from Microsoft, pay them twice, whatever they want to use, go ahead. And those guys already come in and say, okay, we use React because we don't know nothing else.
Yeah.
And that is a problem at this point in time. I said, please don't look at this like I'm a hater or anything. I just want you to be aware of this because it's a real phenomenon. It's an issue that a lot of corporations and companies, they're like, hey, what if we use this tool for this project? Maybe it's better. Maybe it's faster. Maybe it has some process that it's, making things better for us than the other one. No, they just plow ahead. So what is the lesson here? Always be on the lookout on your own personal time. What is the latest new thing? Is this something that maybe I want to maybe just a bit, look under the hood, see if it's nicer or not, and
Yeah.
keep a broader perspective. So, for example, in the first 2 years of my programming, and maybe with this we finish up because I know Paul, you are limited on time, so I'm sorry. I think
No, it's
probably this
okay.
is
No
the
worries.
longest session that we have. So for me, it's okay. It's good.
No,
Uh,
this is fine.
when people go into the world, they're like, hey, how do I start? Yeah, you should start Java directive. So why? Nobody's telling you why. They said, well, he told me to learn Java, and I'm learning Java. Or my friend told me, hey, learn React, and I learned React. And people just like went on a direction. But in the first 2 years, what I did, I literally took almost every single programming language out there. It was PHP, JavaScript, C#, C++, everything. And I did just, like a week of this, maybe a month of this, and spread it over almost 2 years. In the first year was actually mostly JavaScript and some bit of PHP. And then in the second year, I literally took them all. Hey, what is this? JavaScript, React, Angular, Vue, whatever. PHP, Laravel, and so forth, C#, Elixir, whatever. So I went through almost all of them, including databases and so forth. I just wanted to see, hey, what the hell are these? Is this something I like or not? And then I started to say, oh, I don't like Java because I can't possibly understand it. I'm sorry, it's way above me. I barely understand this. I don't like C# for these reasons. I don't like that for these reasons, and so forth. So eventually, after all of this, I ended up with saying, okay, I'm going to learn JavaScript. I'm going to learn a bit of PHP, some WordPress, some tools that I can use and I can understand and comprehend. And that is the exercise that I want to stretch out for everybody. The tool that you're using right now may be something you enjoy, but always be, open to test something else, because there might be something that not only that is using best practices, but using what you use now, but it's 10 times better. And you learn a lot more in the process, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's a good place to tie everything together. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. That was really awesome. Get that introduction to Vue JS. As we saw in chat, a lot of people liked it more than React. And we'll to more and many more conversations around programming stuff. So thank you, and thank you everybody who joined. I know it was a long stream. A lot of people are like, oh man, I don't have 2 hours. Well, you could always rewatch these later, but fantastic. So thanks a lot, George. Thanks a lot, everybody in the chat, and everybody have a great weekend, great evening, and we'll see everybody later. Take care. Bye.
See you guys. Bye.